Three, two, one.
Every April, realtors commemorate the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968 with events and education that shine a light on housing discrimination and segregation. Fair Housing Month signifies a recommitment for expanding equal access to housing. My name's Steve Chung. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Jurgen Robinson. Say wave, Jurgen. And today, joining us, we have a special guest, Don Anderson, down below. And Don is a broker with John L. Scott and is also a member of the Thurston County Realtors Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and is passionate about fair housing. Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Excited to have you here.
Yeah. It's an important topic.
It is. It really is. Today we're talking about fair housing, but always leading into our topic, we always have a little bit of fun stuff ahead of us. And we actually have a trivia question. Don, how about, do you have that trivia question in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Let's see. So we're going to be talking about protected classes today. So which one of these is not a protected class? Gender identity, political ideology, deceased squatters, or veteran military status? Go ahead and let us know what you think, and we will give the answer towards the end.
Sounds great. And if you're out there in the audience and you have a question, want to make a comment, drop your comment in the comment section, question in the comment section, and we'll make sure to get to it. Okay. So, all right. Today's topic, we're talking about the history of Fair Housing Act and why it's still important to this day. I want to open this up to maybe some discussion to our co-host, but when you guys hear the words fair housing, what are some of the first thoughts that come to mind?
Fair housing, probably the first thought that comes to mind is unfair housing. Why do we need to have fair housing? And who does it protect?
Great question. Who does, when we talk about fair housing, who does it protect? Who is it looking after?
Well, the buyers, of course. Buyers have, over time, have experienced discrimination. So fair housing is here to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to give everybody a fair chance to get housing and have access to housing opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this has been an issue, you know, and they've created the Fair Housing Act of 1968, and they recognized that problem, you know, over 50, 60 plus years ago. And even today, as we're in this market, it's still an issue that we're talking about and addressing. You know, when we talk about fair housing, you know, there's a lot of protected classes out there, and we're going to kind of talk about that. Like, what are some of the protected classes? I think part of our trivia question is which class is not a unprotected class, but there are actually a lot of protective classes out there. So,
yeah, I think it's a yeah, Steve. I think it's a great topic because first, it'd be nice to say that the Civil Rights Act happened or Fair Housing Act happened, and all of a sudden, everything was good, and we all lived in peace and harmony. But that's not the case, and it's sometimes can be very under in the shadows, or you don't necessarily see it outright, but the undercurrents still go today. I mean, we've had a very bright, shining awareness brought to DEI very recently, diversity,
equity.
equity. Thank you. You know what? All of a sudden, it left diversity, equity, and inclusion, and fair housing. And just to have that awareness, to be able to remember that we still, even though we've come a long way, still got a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just kind of thinking about that, and we've talked about some of those protective classes. We have, federally, they have the 7 federally protected classes that they list, and those are race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and familial status. But there's still a lot of other protected classes out there. Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So, what are some of the other protective classes? And even talking about the protective classes that we just named, I guess, what are some of those other protective classes?
Even before then, what do you think if we because not everybody necessarily knows what is a protected class, and why does it exist? And then when we do have those, I mean, the federal government with the with fair housing has set up 7 that are protected across the country. But then when you get into Washington state, you actually have a couple more identified. And then even within specific counties or cities, there can be some more. But what about starting even with the federal? I mean, why do we have protected classes? And then, what are those protected classes?
I think when I look back and, I asked a question at the top of the show is, what do you think about when we talk about fair housing? But it's being able to obtain home ownership and have a fair and even playing field when you're purchasing a property, and everyone is treated fairly, and you're not judged or treated differently because of who you are. Because of who you are, based off of whether it's your race, the color of your skin, where you come from, like your national origin. Maybe it's your religious belief, sex, male, female, disabilities, or your familial status.
You're going to get the same rules and the same treatment no matter what category you fall into.
Yeah, that's
basically
incredibly important.
Yeah. So,
and unfortunately, it wasn't always the case, right?
Yeah. Historically, we've had some policies and laws that specifically exclude people and kind of led to unequal wealth and health outcomes. So that is what fair housing is all about, is leveling the playing field and giving everybody a fair chance.
Yeah. And it's not only always about exclusion, right? Sometimes it's about just treating them differently, like setting up different qualifications for programs, or the ability to rent a home, like what income qualifications might be for maybe one race or one of these protected classes compared to the broad general, or pretty much any qualification. They should be equal across the board, regardless of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, familial status, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of it has to be, talk about just making sure you're treating everyone equally across the board. And it's funny. I was watching a video the other day, a couple days ago, when it comes to fair housing and how they talk about like implicit bias, and sometimes just some of the things we do and say naturally, it leads into, fair housing violations, things we want to do when we talk about our business practices.
Yeah.
So
Steve, that's a huge one. Sometimes it's not even intentional. So just learning more, being aware is so important, so that you're not unintentionally leaving somebody out or treating them differently.
absolutely. And we've got some great resources and videos. We will put some of that information up in the in our chat. so that if you want some more information and more specific uh, information on that, you can click on the videos and learn more about it.
Yeah. And Steve, if we've got the let's see, do have a comment here, Vern, right? I'm most definitely interested in learning more and more about the subject of fair housing and policies. It's good. The If you're just tuning in, we're talking about fair housing. It is Fair Housing Month. The National Association of Realtors recognizes April as Fair Housing Month, bringing a spotlight onto fair housing issues and continuing to make progress. We've learned a lot over the past little bit about how fair housing has been not equally distributed, and also that the recognition, we just want to continue to make progress, and also learned a lot about how it has come about. People have not been treated fairly, even with the Association of Realtors themselves being complicit in some of the things that happened in the past, which is why it's really important to recognize fair housing, continue to make progress. If you have any comments, drop them in the any experiences you might have had. Steve, we're talking about protected classes. What's the first protected class?
First protected class that they have up is race. You know, when we think about race, we kind of think about, or at least I think about, is like how in the past people have been treated differently because of their race, and what has happened, and how they were. I mean, it kind of leads into maybe some staring is what I'm thinking about.
Some what?
Staring.
Steer.
Some steering,
Steering.
yeah.
Yeah.
But staring. I was watching a video the other day, and it was talked about race and staring. And when they talk about staring, it's staring certain people into certain areas of town or the city based off of their race, maybe the color of their skin. And it's just really intriguing that, they talked about implicit bias. And when we're working with buyers in the area, how sometimes we could subconsciously, say, hey, I've got a great area for you over in this area, which is where a lot of like races are over in this area, in thinking that as we're working with these people, they're of that race or that color, that they feel comfortable over here, and that we are actually steering them in that direction, as opposed to helping them and treating them equal and saying, hey, we've got homes all over.
It's their decision to make, right?
It is.
And not us, not as real estate professionals. It's not our job to decide where they're going to be most comfortable. We're there to help them find where they're comfortable without suggesting things based on a protected class.
Yeah. So these protected classes, what pretty much what they are, like
yeah. And sometimes ethnicity,
yeah. Color of their skin,
Hispanic or Asian or African American, American Indian, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that came across when we're it's kind of in some education, and even this is what it was. It was a test scenario that they did, and they had testers out there, and they were testing them, and based off of the buyers that came through, the testers would guide them into a particular area, not necessarily purposefully, but just saying, hey, we've got some great homes over in this area. I think one of the testers that came in was of Asian descent, and the broker was saying, hey, we got some great homes over in the Chinatown area. I think you'd love them. I've got this great listing. Not realizing that they wanted to live in a different area, even after that buyer said they wanted to live over in a different area. So that kind of goes a little bit, and that's what I think about when we talk about race and staring. It's just making sure that we understand and we hear the clients and the buyers that we're working with.
Absolutely.
So I think that goes for the first two protected classes when we talk about race and color and even some of that national origin, right?
Yeah. And not making assumptions. National origin is, like, where is somebody from originally? For example, Russia, or a country of origin where there's conflict or feelings surrounding it, you got to be careful about that and not labeling it good or bad. We've got other countries that kind of fall into that: North Korea, Cuba, Mexico, that we should be careful about thinking good or bad, and labeling them.
Yeah, I think when we talk about national origin, I know throughout areas and towns, states and cities, counties, sometimes we get these pockets and groups of people or family members, and they sometimes get lumped together, and we kind of know that. And sometimes what we want to definitely stay away from is assuming that maybe this particular person that we're working with wants to be in that particular area if they're telling you they want to go elsewhere. And that's probably one of the things when we talk about implicit bias, is really making sure that we're listening to our clients, our buyers, our folks that we're talking to.
I like where Don was going there, and actually even what you've been alluding to before, Steve, about being able to, they're a protected class, and just stereotyping is really hard to remove from a situation, considering maybe one group might be a little cheaper, or one group is looking specifically for this or that, and being able to remove those feelings from an offer, or the feelings that a seller or anybody involved in the real estate transaction might have towards another party based on race, color, national origin, religion, any of the protected classes in there. And Don, you mentioned about so much of this is really ingrained. There's that implicit bias that most of us aren't even really aware of. So it's only by having conversation and seeing what other people, other points of view, and understanding other people's experiences, can we actually open it up beyond our own little prism of just we understand our experiences, but unless we have open dialogue and conversation, it's really hard to get a different point of view and understand somebody else's situation that didn't grow up like we did.
Yeah, I was watching this video, educating myself here on this, and one of the things they talked about was this. There's one lady and said, when you are amongst your people of like-minded color and origins, you tend to think the same way and go in the same direction. But once you get yourself in a more diverse area, you're able to learn a lot more and make a better decision because you're getting different points of view on these subjects. So just one of the things that just kind of popped out when we're talking about like the diversity and being able to open up your mind and think a little bit different. So what else? Like when we talk about those protected classes, we talked a little bit about race, color, national origin. How about religion?
Sure. Number four.
That's a big part of many people's identity, and it's important that we're sensitive to that, and not just like the other classes, not making assumptions. I guess that's what it keeps coming back to. We're not making assumptions. We're listening and doing our best to give that client what they need based on what they're telling us, not based on something we're observing about them, such as religion can sometimes be different religions can have different clothes that they wear, and it can be obvious, whereas other times it's not. So it's just really important to be aware of that and be respectful of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So always just kind of being aware and being aware by talking, asking questions. Sex. Let's talk about sex. That's a song. I just came popped in my heart.
Well, that's a little salt and pepper for you.
That's right. That's right. But yes, sex is a protected class. We're talking about male, females, and the difference in the way sometimes, as a consumer, when we talk about sex, it's how they are treated based off of their gender or their gender. So, um, that's also a protected class. Do you treat the do you treat someone differently? You shouldn't. It should be an equal playing field, right?
Yeah.
Disabilities.
Disability is another one that can be visible or sometimes it's invisible. And so just being aware again of that potential that somebody could have mental or a physical disability. There's laws in place to protect, especially with the physical disabilities. They may need some kind of reasonable accommodations to be made to the property, and that is protected as well. And just knowing that.
That's absolutely correct. So when you're thinking about people and you're looking at people and they may have those disabilities, just making sure that we understand, their rights, that we're treating them equal, and finding out more about them. We've got a question. Oh, that's a great question.
Stay tuned, right?
That was one of the choices on the trivia question.
That's right.
Trying to figure out the answer before the answer is given. I got you.
It's a great question.
I think someone's trying to narrow some stuff down.
Yeah, definitely had that one earlier there, for sure. Vern Wright, definitely most interested in learning more about the subject.
Okay, awesome. So, and then the last federally protected class, which we'll touch on, is familial status.
Familial status. What does that mean?
What does familial status when they talk about familial status?
Well, I know I'm working with buyers today. I've seen lots of different types of families. It's not always a nuclear family that we're looking at. So I think that is a big one. And being able to treat single parent families that are multi-generational, families with children, especially the kids one is huge. Sometimes it's actually not legal to discriminate against a family with children. Like, you can't make the rules different if they have children, with the exception of specific adult only, like older adult only communities that have that in their rules.
So are we talking about like maybe the family makeup?
Yeah, the family makeup. Exactly.
Yeah. You shouldn't, you can't. It is a protected class, so discrimination against the family makeup. Just
live and let live. Everybody's got kind of their own structure going on, and I think that the diversity of families, it strengthens the community.
Yeah.
So what's interesting? Oh, when you say that, what's interesting is we always have to be aware of that, even when we write listening remarks, don't we? Like to say it's a kid's room or a playroom or something that's explicitly to a spot where it might be, if you say this is even the word like family room, right? It might imply that this isn't for a single person, like families only. Like that can go not only the way of being accepting of a family, but also we don't want single people around. It's an interesting thing. And our descriptions, we have to be very careful about the wording, that we don't accidentally do some kind of implicit bias just by our the words we use inside of a listing description. We have banned words inside of there, right?
Mhm. That's, yeah, good point.
We do. I mean, that's one of the things that we have to be really careful about, because over the last, several years, they've been working on changing a lot of stuff like that, like such as Jurgen said, like family room, or what's the one they recently changed was the bedroom. The big bedroom is now not a,
Primary.
Primary.
it's a primary bedroom
Or owner's suite. I've seen
or,
that.
or owner's suite. Yes, I like that one, the owner's suite. So we've talked a lot. We've talked, a lot about these 7 federally protected classes. But what are some of the other classes that we're also starting to see as protected classes when we venture further out than just the federal protected classes? What are some of those other classes?
Oh, when you get to Washington State, there's an additional overlay, right?
Mhm.
There is, and there's quite a few that weren't mentioned here. What are some of the other ones? If you're on watching us right now, let us know. We've talked about the 7 protective classes. Drop some other ones that you may think are on this list in the comments section. We'd love to hear.
The first one takes the familial status that we just talked about, be with children, multi-generation, whatever it might be, and then actually takes it to a marital status. Are you married, single, divorced? Stereotypes within there.
Yeah.
What was that, Don?
I said married, single, divorced. I said doesn't matter.
No.
Yeah, it's all protected. So
Yeah, and some, if you go back to like the thoughts in the 50s, if somebody was divorced, it was almost like a scandal. Oh, we don't want a divorcee in our neighborhood. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Everybody should have an equal right to be live where it's best for them.
Yeah.
And that should not be defined by us or some other arbitrary feeling out there.
Yeah. And some of the other protective classes that they haven't mentioned what are some of the other ones?
sexual orientation.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Protected class in Washington State. And
And that kind of wraps in with the one right after it, right?
yeah, gender identity. So all protected in Washington State, whether you're gender conforming or non-conforming, ambiguous, transgender, it is protected from any housing transaction. And that includes rentals too. So good to know.
Yep.
I'm actually happy. If you guys have made it this far in the video, it kind of goes in and around a little bit. And we feel our way through a lot of this, but we were focusing a little bit on the protected classes because oftentimes that specific part doesn't, we talk about the fair housing laws. The protected classes themselves don't always get the attention. And when we think about protected classes, oftentimes we tend to focus on just one specific class. Often it is kind of the African-American experience because it has been so prevalent and it has been so much a part of the national dialogue for the last couple years, really specifically. But there are really a lot of protected classes, and each of them are protected for a reason, and bringing that attention forward for us to be able to understand and help each of these be able to compete or be able to live a life like everybody else deserves is really important.
Absolutely.
Or not everybody else. They deserve as well. I made it sound like they don't deserve it necessarily, but everybody else does. That is contrary to what fair housing is about.
Yeah. So being aware, there's a lot of protective classes, and just making sure that you kind of know what they are, you're treating everyone fairly. I think that's probably one of the big messages that we want to get there, is just kind of some self-awareness of, as a broker, I'm thinking as a broker, just some self-awareness of making sure that you're just treating everyone equal when you're dealing with them, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what was that last one? Because I think this answers a question that was asked. Now we get to that. Is the military a protected class?
Yes. It
military.
absolutely is, as well as veteran status.
Yes.
So, um, so what about VA loans?
V- VA loans, they're great loans. The veterans paid for it and they earned it. Should They should not be penalized for using VA their VA eligibility and their VA loan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think being careful about that is really important because there had been a stigma at one point. I don't think that really exists in the same way as it did now because some of the appraisal guidelines would be stricter with a VA loan. There were some things that made the VA loan maybe not as appealing to some buyers, or they would not consider it in the same way they might a conventional or a FHA loan. But
yeah,
because veterans and military are actually a protected class, I think just being aware and being understanding what the VA loan is about, that probably want to be careful about how discriminatory it might be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
as a broker, it's our job to explain that too, even when we're representing this on the seller side.
Mhm.
Absolutely, especially in this market, making sure they get a full understanding of um, why they're using their VA home loan and the benefits. Yeah, that's part of what we do, and just kind of educating the sellers and the buyers for that matter.
Yeah.
So, okay,
That
well,
takes it.
uh-huh. Go ahead, George.
Steve's wrap up for the protected classes from the federal side. You have race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and familial status. When you get to Washington State, you add a couple more into there that are a protected class for Washington State specifically, inclusive now of marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, then veteran military status. And I think you were just going to lead into sometimes when you get down to the counties, such as King County, Seattle, Tacoma, and others, really, they will take it beyond what Washington State has and put some overlays on them, right?
Hmm.
Yes.
Yep. They've got some additional protected classes. Age, no age discrimination. Whether or not someone's a Section 8 client, ancestry, and use of service or assistive animal is also protected class in King County.
Yeah. Yeah, each one gotta be careful of age. I not saying that we should be, making offers to babies or anything like that, but more often the converse side. Actually, it might be on that lower side too. Someone who might be an early home buyer. Maybe that 18 to early 20s, where maybe they go in with the feeling that all they're going to do is party. They're going to ruin the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. So, touching on all the protective classes, there's a lot. Making sure that you're aware, and we're even just kind of having these conversations about that, just kind of learning more about the protective classes. That's what we're doing today, and it's just kind of opening up that dialogue. When we talk about the Fair Housing Act, there's just the talk of the protected classes is just a very small piece of what we talk about when we look at fair housing, and this is like a huge big subject, so we could kind of go in a lot of different areas with this, and we will definitely bring this subject back up on our next go around or in another talent talk to come. So we're kind of wrapping up, and our time's up for talent talk today. I just wanted to really thank Don Anderson for coming out and co-hosting Talent Talk with us. But before we go, we have a couple of quick announcements along
And
with.
just before you get there, Steve, Vern,
uh,
thanks for the comment again. Thank you very much for the reminders, what Vern says. And absolutely,
uh,
this month to
Vern,
check it
we
out.
appreciate you tuning in and giving us some feedback. We always appreciate that. So, Don, we've got a answer to our trivia question.
All
So,
right. All right. Again, that question was, which one is not a protected class? We've got A, gender identity, B, political ideology, C, deceased squatters, D, veteran military status. So, anybody want to give a guess?
You know what? I'm gonna go with C, the obvious.
You are correct. C, deceased squatters, is
Mhm.
not a protected class. But that means that B, political ideology, is in, let's see, what jurisdiction was that? In Seattle, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good to know.
They cannot discriminate against your political views or how you align yourself politically.
That's right, even if that changes.
That's right. That is right. So, all right, gang. So, a couple of announcements before we wrap up here. We have a win a trip going on, which is a drawing. Simply fill out our win a trip form. Do we have the entry that we can post up on here in the comment section, or no? Well,
Christy's giving the thumbs up that yes,
Okay.
it's absolutely going in.
Okay, perfect. So we've got a win a trip form. We do a drawing. You're going to get a $4,000 credit to a trip anywhere you want. It's coming up at the end of this month. We also have several events coming up in the coming week. We have our open house weekend going this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. You can always go to our website and also our Facebook page, John L. Scott Talent Group. You can search us on John L. Scott Talent Group and find all the open houses that we have going on this weekend. Today, in about 7 minutes, we have a Forms Friday class where if you're in real estate, you can tune in. You find the link on our webpage and also on our Facebook page where we learn and teach about specific forms within a real estate transaction. We also have a career night. We have a career night coming up April 26th, Tuesday, April 26th. And if you want to find out what it takes to get into real estate, come check out our free class. We go over cost, how long it takes, answer all of your questions about getting into real estate at our career night. You can register at our webpage. Okay. And the last thing we have is a Meta Creator Studio class that is coming up. And if you want to find out more about that Meta class, go to our webpage and we'll have where you can register for that class. We'll also be at the Yelm Easter Fest this weekend, which is at the park right in the middle of town. So stop by, say hello. It's a big event. There's a lot of vendors out there, really fun. Bring the kids out to it. And that's in Yelm at the park right in the middle of town. Okay. All right, gang. So if you have any suggestions about the next Talent Talk topic, drop them in the chat below. If you want to continue, if you want us to continue to provide value on this platform, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and comments from you. Any suggestions that you have, we'd love to hear what you have to say. All right. All right, gang. This brings us to the top of the hour, the end of our show. Dawn Anderson, so appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me. It's been wonderful.
Good. And Dawn, we normally end our show, our meetings, and everything with a what? A big
Be bold.
Well, tell us what be bold means to you.
It means step outside your comfort zone, do something daring, and just get out there. And I think having these conversations is definitely bold, and keep it up.
Dawn, you're amazing. You're right on point. Let's take it home. We'll end this. We'll let you bring us out and count us down, Dawn. How about that?
All right, let's do it.
All right.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Be bold.
Be bold.
Woo!
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.